Today, we're diving into a really powerful concept, something that for many people is completely life-changing. It's called cognitive firewalling. Think of it as a strategy for building a kind of mental fortress, not one based on aggression, but on a quiet, unshakable sense of self, designed to protect your psychological sovereignty. Let's get into it.
You know, the most striking truth about this whole idea is that the strongest defense against a manipulator isn't some loud argument or a clever comeback. No, it's a quiet, internal boundary that they don't even know is there. It's like a force field they can't see, which means they have absolutely nothing to attack.
We're all kind of taught that we have to announce our boundaries, right? That we have to defend them with a constant stream of explanations. We just assume that a boundary needs words to exist. But in these high-pressure, manipulative situations, that assumption is a huge mistake. And here's why. It's because your own biological drive for transparency, that really deep human need to be seen and to be understood, is the exact vulnerability that a manipulator looks for. They are counting on you, wanting to connect, to open up, to explain your inner world. And they take that need, and they weaponize it. They turn your own explanations into a roadmap for your own destruction. This is the central paradox we're going to explore, a concept called selective opacity. It's that exact moment your desire to be seen becomes the very tool used to capture you psychologically.
So this leads to the big question, the one we're really going to unpack today. Why is it that explaining your feelings to a manipulator always seems to make you feel more tangled up, more exhausted, and in the end, just more trapped? The answer, it turns out, is in the architecture of your defense.
So here's our game plan. We'll start by breaking down the transparency trap. Then we'll lay the foundation with the architecture of peace. After that, we get into the nuts and bolts of building your firewall. We'll understand the psychology of sovereignty and learn what it takes to become the sovereign observer. And we'll wrap it all up with the key to everything: your password, your peace.
Okay, let's jump right into our first section, the transparency trap. This is so fundamental because it explains why our usual ways of communicating totally backfire in these toxic situations. It's all about recognizing that moment when your words stop being bridges and start being weapons used against you. So the solution we're talking about is cognitive firewalling. And I want you to think of it less like a wall and more like an operating system upgrade for your mind. It's a really deep cognitive shift where you build a kind of mental encryption. The whole point is to train your brain to just ignore the hooks of guilt and shame that manipulators use. Their tools literally stop working because your system doesn't even recognize their code anymore. And listen, this isn't just some abstract theory. You see this play out in really high-stakes, real-world situations. Think about high-conflict legal battles where lawyers tell their clients to say as little as possible because every single word can be twisted. It's the whole idea behind the gray rock method, a survival skill for people in enmeshed families, where you learn to be as boring as a gray rock. And you see it in toxic workplaces, where top performers use it to protect their mental bandwidth from drama. It's a genuine survival skill.
Okay, so let's talk about the architecture of peace. You can't just decide to build a firewall out of thin air. You need a solid foundation first. This part is all about the core beliefs, the internal shifts that make the whole thing strong enough to stand.
And it all starts with installing 2 new core belief patterns. Now, these aren't just feel-good affirmations. They are radical changes in how you see yourself and your relationships. They're the bedrock of what you could call internal locus stability, basically finding your center of gravity inside yourself, not in how other people react to you.
The first one is the privacy anchor. This is that liberating moment when you truly realize that your internal world, all your thoughts, your feelings, your reasons for doing things, is your private property. You control who gets access. It's not a public park where anyone can just wander in and offer their opinion. You are the sole administrator of your own headspace, period.
The second core belief is emotional decoupling. This is the skill, and it is a skill you can practice, of staying completely steady and calm on the inside, even when someone on the outside is creating an absolute hurricane of drama. You learn to watch their storm without letting a single drop of rain fall on you. Their chaos is their chaos. It has nothing to do with your internal weather.
So the ultimate goal here is to systematically train yourself so that your internal sense of peace is completely 100% independent of another person's mood or their approval or their behavior. Your peace becomes a non-negotiable. It doesn't depend on them being calm. This is a complete rewrite of the unwritten rules of social power.
All right, so we've got the foundation poured for our fortress. Now, how do we actually build the walls? This section is the how-to. we're getting into the practical, step-by-step, three-phase mechanism for building your cognitive firewall.
The process breaks down into 3 distinct phases that build on each other. First up is the encryption phase. Then comes the decoupling strike. And finally, the information silo. Let's look at each one.
Phase 1 is encryption. This is where you consciously stop justifying, you stop defending, you stop over-explaining yourself. You're not being aggressive, you're just cutting off the supply of data they use to twist things. The immediate goal is to see what their frustration threshold is. You'll watch them get agitated because their old keys don't work on your new locks. Honestly, people who do this say they feel an immediate sense of lightness, like a huge weight just got lifted off their shoulders.
Phase 2 is the decoupling strike, and this one is a total game changer. When a manipulative tactic comes at you, a guilt trip, a projection, a backhanded compliment, instead of feeling that sting and reacting, you mentally and silently stick a label on it. You just think, that's guilt tripping, or, interesting, projection. This simple act instantly shifts you from being the victim to being the analyst. You start observing the move instead of feeling the pain.
And finally, phase 3, the information silo. This is where you fully lean into being boring. You become the gray rock. You give them nothing new, no dramatic fuel for their fire. But here's the critical part. This doesn't mean you suppress your feelings, not at all. You silo them. You make a conscious choice to process that anger or that hurt later in a safe, private space, maybe with a journal or a trusted friend. Your privacy becomes the ultimate proof of your power.
And this just sums up the power shift perfectly. Your strategic silence, your lack of reaction, it creates this deep confusion in the manipulator. Their program isn't running correctly. And that confusion, that little gap in their control, that is exactly where your freedom begins.
So why is this stuff so effective? Let's get into the psychology of it all. We're going to look at the core motivation for building this kind of sovereignty and compare it to the vulnerability that keeps so many of us trapped in these cycles.
Just look at this contrast here. On one side, you have the motivation for sovereignty, what we're calling boundary architecture. The goal, total emotional independence. You own your reaction, and that gives you absolute leverage over your own life. But on the other side is the vulnerability, that deep, often subconscious need for validation. This mindset values being understood more than being safe. And by doing that, it unknowingly gives away the root access to its own emotional operating system.
And check this out. There's actually a principle from behavioral science that guarantees this strategy works over time. It's called extinction burst theory. Think about it. When a behavior used to get a reward, and for a manipulator, your emotional reaction is the reward, and then you suddenly take that reward away, they don't stop right away. Oh no, they escalate. They'll get louder, they'll try harder. That's the burst, and it can be scary. But if you hold the line, if you give them absolutely no reaction, no hit, that behavior will eventually extinguish. They'll give up and go find an easier target.
This all brings us to the ultimate transformation, becoming the sovereign observer. This is that identity shift from being a reactive target, feeling every little jab, to becoming a detached analyst of the whole situation. Let's look at the tools that make this possible. To make this mental shift, there are 2 simple but incredibly powerful awareness tools we can use. Think of them like diagnostic tests for your own conversations. First is the explanation audit. In any tough conversation, just ask yourself this one simple question. Am I talking or am I bleeding? Productive talking feels like you're actually making progress. There's a sense of respect and understanding. But bleeding feels like you're just pouring out words and getting nowhere. You feel drained, trapped, and you're stuck in that loop of justifying and over-explaining. The second you realize you're bleeding, that's your cue to stop. That's your signal to put up the firewall. The second tool is observer awareness. This is just the practice of making a clean, clear boundary statement and then fighting that powerful urge to justify it. Just say, I'm not discussing that today, and then stop talking. The period is the boundary. The word because is the trap, right? It's an invitation for them to debate you. The silence that follows your statement, that's where the power shifts back to you. And this slide really captures the whole cognitive shift perfectly. You go from being a reactive target who feels the sting of every insult and always feels that urge to explain, to a sovereign observer who sees those same insults as just data packets, to be analyzed or, more likely, just deleted. You go from needing external validation to owning your internal why. Your empathy is still there. It just goes from being wide open to attack to being strategically insulated. You become empowered by your own silence.
So let's bring all of this together with the final, most important takeaway.
It's about finally realizing that the key to your own peace, the password to your well-being, has been in your pocket the whole time.
The path to sovereignty is really paved with these simple truths. Real strength is quiet. You have to encrypt your peace, stop the endless justifications, be willing to be the gray rock, and most importantly, you have to truly understand that you don't have to win the argument to win the war for your own sanity. The real win is taking back your inner peace.
Your mind is a private territory. No one gets in without your permission. And your awareness, that's the gatekeeper, the security system, and the key, all wrapped into one. Protecting that territory isn't selfish. It's the most fundamental act of psychological self-preservation there is.
And we'll end on this. This is the ultimate realization of cognitive firewalling. It's that knowledge, deep down in your bones, that lets you say to yourself and to the world, I am the only one with the password to my peace.